I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, hospitals get the word to think Ebola, and a local researcher turns to crowdfunding to fight the disease. Also tonight, teachers are back on the job in San Ysidro, but the district's troubles aren't over yet.
And if you're a healthy 65-year-old American, you can expect to live until you're age 84. I'm Peggy Pico with a look at planning and caring for the growing population of aging adults. Plus, the Centennial Celebration Plan of the 1915 Panama, California Exposition in Balboa Park is announced by San Diego's mayor. How the year-long list of activities aims to rekindle local love and improve the park.
Bringing a local supply of drinking water to the East County. We'll tell you about a study to expand recycling water at Padre Dam. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Federal health officials have launched a review of procedures for treating patients infected with Ebola. This comes after a nurse in Texas was diagnosed with the disease. She was part of the medical team treating Thomas Eric Duncan, who died last week, the first Ebola patient diagnosed in the U.S. The Centers for Disease Control says it's urging hospitals to think Ebola and watch for patients with fever or symptoms of the disease.
We wish the situation in Dallas were different than it is today. We wish this individual had not been infected, and we're concerned that there could be other infections in the coming days. But what we're doing now is implementing an immediate set of steps that will ensure that the care of that individual is safe and effective, while we look longer term at what this implies for what we should be doing to care for Ebola as safely and effectively as possible wherever it may arise.
At this point, it's not known how the nurse contracted the virus. She was wearing protective gear, including gowns, gloves, masks, and face shields. At one point, it was suggested she may have made a mistake, leading to her exposure, a suggestion that upset leaders of the nurses' union.
No one could say what had happened, and yet their initial reaction was to blame a nurse who was putting their life on the line in order to provide care for this patient, knowing that that could be a risk to her health and safety and even her life. And then to have the first response be to blame the nurse, not even knowing what had happened, I think is really wrong. We have been requesting training, equipment, the highest optimal level of equipment, including hazmat suits, for a while, and we have not received adequate training. We have not received the face-to-face training we've requested.
A major Ebola training session will take place at UCLA Medical Center on Friday. PBS NewsHour will have more on the response to Ebola coming up at 7 tonight. A scientist at Scripps Research Institute here is going online to crowdfund more research money. Erica Ullman-Sapphire is trying to raise $100,000 on crowdraise.com. The money would supplement federal research grants. Ullman says it would be used to buy equipment. As of today, she's raised about $12,000. San Ysidro teachers went back to the classroom today after a three-day strike. Earlier this morning, the district and union came to an agreement. Teachers ratified it just before heading back to class. KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler has this update from the newsroom.
While the strike may be over, the San Ysidro School District is not out of the woods. Passions ran hot on the last day of the strike. Interim Superintendent George Cameron says he and his staff were caught totally off guard.
No one here anticipated that level of emotion. It did not play into our ultimate decision in this agreement with the teachers union. What really drove the agreement was, again, the recognition that as a school district, we're in financial crisis.
The district estimates the strike cost them over $200,000. It paid substitutes $250 a day instead of the regular $120 and hired extra security. And by the third day, only 44% of the entire student body was in class, costing state funding. The new agreement gives teachers a small raise. Laura Duzick is with the San Diego County Office of Education. She is working as a special financial advisor to San Ysidro. She says low student attendance is a big part of the district's budget problems.
They have a couple of things they need to do now. Get back to the business of teaching and learning and work on their average daily attendance so that they can maximize the attendance, because that's how they're paid. They're paid on their attendance.
Both Duzick and Cameron hope that with the strike over, San Ysidro will focus on increasing student enrollment. One of the things San Ysidro hopes that will help grow the student population is full-time kindergarten. The district starts that in November. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
There's 1 week left to register to vote in the November election. County Registrar says you need to fill out a new form if you've moved recently or change your name. You can check your registration status online at sdvote.com. And you can also find all of our election coverage at kpbs.org/election. San Diego released plans for the 2015 Balboa Park Centennial today. Peggy Pico takes a closer look.
City officials say the plan is to elevate, celebrate, and promote Balboa Park. The 2015 Centennial commemorates the 100th anniversary of the 1915 Panama, California Exposition at Balboa Park, which includes year-long activities and park upgrades. Joining me with some highlights is my guest, Michael Ruiz, Balboa Park's 2015 District Manager. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Now, what's the focus or theme of this Centennial celebration?
Well, as you mentioned, it's elevate, celebrate, and promote Balboa Park. What that really allows us to do, and what that has created for us, is an opportunity to collaborate and develop partnerships, not only for now, but leading on through next year and years to come. So all that together, it's allowed us to really put together some projects that will enhance Balboa Park. You know, for example, just as the California Tower, the Botanical Building, Spreckles Organ Pavilion, and even the Cabrillo Bridge are legacies of the 1915 exposition. What we're working on today with the projects and the elevate component, if you will, is what will last for years to come.
Let's go into a little detail about that. I know there's free Wi-Fi. Tell us a little bit about this elevate or sort of promote, improve the park, I should say. Give us some examples.
Well, you mentioned the Wi-Fi. So it'll be one of the largest free public Wi-Fi systems on the West Coast. And that'll be up and running sometime right after January 2015. And of course, there's the Light the Park project. It's a collaboration with the City of San Diego and SDG&E. So not only are we going to be saving over 50% energy cost, but visitors will be able to come to the park in the evenings and be able to see from the California Tower to over by the Reuben H. Fleet, the buildings lit up in unique colors.
I know also, and I'm excited about this, the reopening of the tower. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So first time in 80 years, the tower was closed back in 1935. And this is, again, a collaboration with the Museum of Man and the City of San Diego to open up the tower for the first time.
So we can go up?
All the way up. And so they'll have tours that you'll be able to go on, and they'll be programmed throughout the day.
How exciting. A nice panoramic view from up there, I understand.
360-degree view, some of the best views in town.
I know the celebration begins actually December nights on December 5th. What are a few of the other special events right around the holidays being planned?
Well, there's December nights, as you mentioned, and of course December nights in 2015 as well. Then we also have on December 31st, the Spreckles Organ Society will be kicking off their season in 2015 with a New Year's Eve event. So the Spreckles Organ Pavilion is also turning 100 years, and with the addition of a few extra pipes, going to be one of the largest outdoor organs in the world.
And I looked at some of the celebrations aside from the pavilion. There's something that's also a garden party. Tell us about that.
So the City of San Diego, for their signature spring event, will have the Garden Party for the Century. It's a collaboration with not only the San Diego Floral, San Diego Botanical, San Diego Zoo, Friends of Balboa Park. We're going to kick it off on April 24th, which is Arbor Day. Very next day, we're going to highlight one of the gardens over on the west side of Balboa Park, Trees for Health. And then the following weekend, we're going to highlight a garden on the East Mesa, culminating on May 9th with the garden party.
Well, the city spent more than $2 million to pay for an outside group to produce this celebration. Of course, we recall that failed, and the city took over on the project back in May. Why does the city still feel it's important to have this, year-long, 100-year celebration?
Well, Balboa Park is really the city's park, if you will. I mean, not only the city of San Diego, but the region's park. And it being 100 years, we need to highlight what is really the jewel of the city and enhance it for years to come.
This is a scaled-down version, of course, of what the city had initially envisioned for this. How many visitors are you expecting?
Well, on any given year, we receive about 12 million visitors a year. So we're hoping to attract San Diegans who have heard of Balboa Park and may not have visited. So it's really an opportunity for San Diegans to either rediscover or discover for the first time the park and come experience all the wonderful, unique things that it has to offer.
It's one of my favorite places in the city. Michael Ruiz, thanks so much. And I want to let folks know they can see more about the celebration and information by going to our website, kpbs.org. Thanks.
Thank you.
Some rent-to-own customers will get refunds under a $28 million settlement announced today by the California Attorney General. The deal is with Aaron's, the second largest rent-to-own company in the country. The company was accused of overcharging customers and putting spyware on rented computers. Aaron's has 4 stores here in San Diego County. Customers who qualify for those refunds will get notices in the mail. Well, we've seen California companies move to Texas. A new report shows a lot of Californians are also making the move. The Texas Association of Realtors says more than 66,000 folks went from California to Texas last year. Out of all the folks who moved to the Lone Star State in 2013, the largest number was from California. On the other hand, California was the most popular destination for people leaving, wait for it, Texas. More than 32,000 people headed west. The report only looks at numbers, though, and not the reasons for the moves. San Diego's Green Flash Brewery isn't moving, but expanding to Virginia. They broke ground today on a new location in Virginia Beach. Last week, we told you about Stone Brewing's plan to add a brewery in Virginia. Dozens of craft brewers are springing up there. While bringing a local supply of drinking water to the East County is the goal of a new feasibility study. It will focus on expanding Padre Dam's recycling facility in Santee. California's ongoing drought and the cost to import water from outside sources continues to rise. That's why water agencies in San Diego's East County are hoping to create a locally controlled supply, using new technology to treat wastewater from other water districts and turn it into drinking water. Alan Carlisle is CEO of Padre Dam.
We're talking about a local, reliable water supply for East County, for San Diego County. You know, we're at the end of the pipeline here in San Diego.
1, 2, 3.
They broke ground on a water purification demonstration project at Padre Dam in Santee, where 50 million gallons of wastewater are treated every day. County Supervisor Diane Jacob hopes it means independence from relying on imported water from Sacramento and the Colorado River.
Well, this project could benefit other parts of the region, not just East County, in that there would be less sewage flow that would go into the Point Loma plant, and then the city of San Diego would have less responsibility.
The one-year project is funded through a grant and won't cost water customers a dime. If the study proves successful, it will mean a new source of water for neighbors in the Helix and El Cajon water districts, as well as the county.
Water transportation is California's single largest energy user in the state. And we have to rethink how we're moving this resource here, there, and everywhere. And it just makes sense to create that resource locally so you're not transporting it hundreds and hundreds of miles.
The demonstration project will take recycled water through 4 treatment steps. They're expected to exceed both state and federal standards for reclaimed water. The dry conditions make this month even scarier than usual for conditions. San Diego County was hit by wildfires in October 2003 and October 2007, and firefighters say the timing is not a coincidence.
The reason October, though, is one of those busier months is because that's when we're transitioning from summer to winter. And during that transition, the winds pick up. The winds are what we saw the fire in Applegate, and the winds are what fanned fires like the Oakland Hills, the 2003 Southern California fire sieges. So until we get rainfall, though, these drought conditions are going to continue to lead to more fires and extreme fire activity.
He says the last time we saw conditions like this was in the drought of the late 1970s, and there was an increase in fires then. Farmers left thousands of acres unplanted this year because of the drought. No planting means no irrigation, and experts in the agricultural industry say it could be a problem for keeping our soil healthy to produce food.
There's more life in the soil than above it, but it's probably our least understood, ecosystem. And so if we're going to make huge improvements in the production of food, one of the real last frontiers is soil life and understanding how the soil interacts with the crop.
He says the state has to do more research to take better care of its soil. Pentagon says climate change will pose a challenge for the military. A new report identifies 4 major concerns: rising global temperatures, changing rainfall patterns, more extreme weather, and rising sea levels. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says all of these things can lead to more natural disasters, and those can lead to more instability around the world. Hagel says rising sea levels can also be a threat for coastal military installations. A new study says 4 fault lines in Northern California are primed for a major earthquake, magnitude 6.8 or higher. You may recall the Loma Prieta quake back in 1989 measured 6.9. USGS says the faults are all around the San Francisco Bay Area. One of them, the Green Valley Fault, as you see there, runs near the dams and canals supplying much of the state's water. It hasn't ruptured in almost 400 years. San Diegans may someday get official emergency messages via Twitter. A geography professor at San Diego State is putting together a list of the region's most influential Twitters, or Twitterers, if you like, looking for the ones who have the most followers and get the most retweets. Those folks will be asked to retweet the county's emergency messages. A consumer group wants an investigation of how California's health insurance exchange awards contracts. Consumer Watchdog says Covered California awarded $184 million in contracts without competitive bidding, and they worry consultants hired to organize the deals may have used their positions to advance the interests of the insurance industry. The agency says it has followed all the rules. A new report says Californians have the 3rd highest rate of medical debt in the nation, and inaccurate billing is the cause. Audits of almost 500 medical claims from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles found more than 83% had billing errors. The auditors say the hospital overcharged Medicare by about 40%. A new CDC report finds the average 65-year-old can expect to live another 19 years or more. Peggy Pico looks at caring challenges and options for aging adults.
As of 2012, babies born in the U.S. have a record high life expectancy of 78.8 years. Meanwhile, the estimated 76 million baby boomers in the U.S. are expected to live longer than previous generations. Here to talk about caring for the aging and aging adults are my guests, Lori Van Tilburg, Executive Director and founder of the Southern Caregiver Resource Center serving San Diego and Imperial counties, and Fritzi Grodeon, founder of Household Guardians and the author of the book Grace and Grit, Insights into Real-Life Challenges of Aging for Adult Children and Their Parents. Welcome. Now, Fritzi, what advice would you give to someone who's beginning to suspect that an aging adult in their family maybe can't live on their own anymore, and maybe when you should step in?
I think you should step in at the time that you first identify what you think is going to be a change. And it can be gentle, it can be with a first meeting, it can be some recommendations about making their home safer, and an opportunity to talk about all the resources that are available to help the child and the parents.
So it sounds like maybe a little bit of graduated intervention, but in your book you point out that one of the first challenges is actually for a senior living on their own is proximity. What do you recommend as far as dealing with proximity issues?
Many seniors would like to remain close to their doctors, close to their friends, and so proximity becomes important. But you also can build a social network if you have to move to another area, closer to your family, and you can get the other social support in different ways.
Now, Lori, I've heard you say that the upcoming holidays and holiday season is actually a great time to start talking about or thinking about caregiving. How come the holidays?
Well, I think that's a time often when kids come to visit mom and dad and they may see some changes that they hadn't expected. The house may be in disarray, there may be bills out on the table that haven't been paid, they may see that there's some memory problems going on with their parents, and that's a first sign that maybe they need to step in and have a difficult conversation with them. But I think stepping back, even if they come for the holidays and there aren't any signs that there are problems, it's good to get those, conversations out in the open before there's a crisis, to talk about, what are your parents' wishes, to bring them into the conversation before, they may just, have memory issues.
Now, Fritzi, when it comes to talking with a loved one or even trying to look at the first steps of helping someone, what do you do if the person has dementia or Alzheimer's? How is that different?
At that point, you really need some professional support through other caregivers, I think, to reach out for the family. You need to recognize that there will be opportunities to have certain memories and to be able to work with someone for some very specific times. But I think reaching out and including some professionals with you as you help your family is probably the best.
Maybe to like the Alzheimer's Association or doctors?
Doctors, or even through the Caregiver Coalition. They have lots of resources, different kinds of support people, and social planners, social workers.
Okay, so they can come to your organization, right?
To echo that, Southern Caregiver Resource Center really is unique in that the family caregiver is our main client, and so we sit down with the family caregiver and really provide them with an assessment of their needs and what do they need to help take care of their family. And it's something that is free and it's available to everyone, and so we encourage people to reach out and that they don't have to be alone to do that. And many of our families have been with us for 20, 25 years, if you're caring for somebody with a traumatic brain injury. But we're there for the full lifelong journey of caregiving, and so definitely reach out for help, because there's help out there and you may feel overwhelmed and isolated and not know what to do.
How long is the wait if you did go to the Caregivers Resource Center? Is there a long wait list?
No, not really at all. I mean, when you call in, you'll be able to talk to our intake coordinator, Amanda, and she'll take some basic information and then refer you to one of our family consultants that are all trained clinicians, and they usually will be able to meet with you in the next week or two, and they can come to your house and do a home assessment, look at the environment there, look at the needs of your loved one. They can also come to our office and do an assessment there. But the nice thing is that we're really there throughout the journey, as I said, and we're there to coach them through the problems and to how to have those difficult conversations with their parents.
You touched on something. People often feel alone when they're trying to care for their aging parents or people in their family. Do you see this sort of loneliness or isolation in dealing with this? Do you see that changing?
I would like to say that I do. However, even though caregiving is becoming more the norm now, families still think it's really their job to take care of their parents or their husband or their wife, and they don't see themselves as caregivers, and so sometimes they don't even think to reach out for help and support because it's not their needs that they're focusing on. They're focusing on the loved one, and so they are isolated.
All right. Well, Lori Van Tilburg and Fritzi Grodeon, thank you so much for this, and we have a lot more information about the Resource Center and other resources on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
San Diego State and KPBS have lost a great friend. Susan Weber has died. She was the university's first lady from 1996 to 2011. Helping former President Stephen Weber to serve SDSU, she founded a women's group called Bridges to act as ambassadors from the university to the community, and she had a great love for this station. The Webers were added to the KPBS Hall of Fame last year. Mrs. Weber died over the weekend in Maine. The family asks, in lieu of flowers, donations be sent to the Bridges Scholarship at SDSU.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, the battle for control of the U.S. Senate may go past Election Day. We look at how runoffs could throw a wrench into the process. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
Beginning to feel more like autumn. We've got a little bit of drizzle in the forecast by midweek, cooling down a bit along the coast into the 70s. 80s for the inland valleys tomorrow, then cooler by midweek. We're looking at 70s later. It will be sunny in the mountains. We're looking at temperatures in the 70s on Thursday. Warm in the desert, back to the low 90s. Recapping tonight's top stories, federal health officials have launched a review of procedures for treating patients infected with Ebola. This comes after a nurse in Texas was diagnosed with the disease. She was part of the medical team treating Thomas Eric Duncan, who died last week. The Centers for Disease Control says it's urging hospitals to think Ebola and watch for patients with fever or symptoms of the disease. And the strike is over in the San Ysidro School District. Teachers there ratified a new contract this morning. It gives them a small raise. District officials say the walkout cost them more than $200,000. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.